As Old Night came to its sudden and unexpected end, the twin worlds of Terra and Mars had found their own ways to overcome the horrors of the age. The people of each had reclaimed human civilization, however scarred these new cultures were by the hardships of their birth. On Terra, the Emperor of Mankind had led his gene-crafted Thunder Warriors and Space Marines in reuniting the techno-barbarian states and restoring order and reason to a world gone mad. On Mars, the cult Mechanicus' fanatical faith in the machine god had allowed it to reclaim the surface from crazed mutants and insane artificial intelligences. The Red Planet had restored its lost heritage of technological wonders and even sent a crop of new colonists through the warp to spread its faith across the galaxy. But at the moment the turbulence in the Imperium finally calmed, reopening a path to the stars, Mars and Terra stared at each other across the void with suspicion. It was the Emperor who made the first move, reaching out a hand to the Mechanicum to forge a new human empire. Under his leadership, the warriors of Terra and the technology of Mars formed the tip of the spear that finally struck back at the forces seeking to destroy mankind. After centuries of turbulence and rage, a final blast of warp energy flashed across the galaxy towards the end of the 30th millennium. It was so powerful that it lit up the skies of thousands of worlds. In the wake of that eruption, the seething currents of psychic energy that had rendered the Imperium impassable to starships calmed for the first time in 5,000 years. As this event unfolded, the Mechanicum Parliament was in session on Mars. The tech priests were deep in debate about how to deal with the extraordinary man who had reunited Terra. Some believed him their promised savior, while others saw only a dangerous foe. As the crimson skies of Mars erupted into brilliance and the servants of the machine god realized what had happened, many among them interpreted the opening up of the warp as a good omen. The machine god had granted them a sign that the next stage in the sacred quest for knowledge was about to begin. But before the deliberators could continue, something even more extraordinary happened. The Emperor of Mankind came to Mars. He first set foot upon the Red Planet atop the summit of Olympus Mons, the greatest mountain in the Sol system, standing 2.5 times the height of Terra's tallest peak. The Emperor understood the cult Mechanicus' unique theology and how they awaited the coming of a physical avatar of their machine god called the Omnissiah. He found himself awash in the psychic emanations of their faith and realized that their belief could be used to aid his mission. As the Emperor emerged from the massive relic void ship that had brought him to Mars, he used his own abilities to project an image of magnificence to all who saw him. This was a carefully crafted illusion that matched the image his onlookers believed defined the Omnissiah. His arrival in this way, as well as the sudden change in the warp, caused many of the tech priests to accept the Emperor as the Messiah their faith had foretold. The message that the Emperor delivered to the people of Mars only reinforced this perception. Following his arrival, the Emperor was immediately taken to meet with the Speaker of the Mechanicum Parliament, the Fabricator General. To the surprise of the ruling Mechanicum Magi, the Emperor knelt before their leader, expressing his deep humility even before they exchanged a single word of greeting. Every word the Emperor spoke only further enraptured the Lords of Mars. He too was clearly a man of knowledge, a passionate believer in reason and the sacred technology it offered to better human lives. He was a scientific genius, who had unlocked the secrets of the ancients and used them to raise Terra up out of barbarism. The Emperor spoke of the legendary times of the Age of Technology as if he had seen them with his own eyes. He told of the ancient alliance between Terra and Mars, who had worked together to settle humanity among the stars. He declared that the time had come for that ancient pact to be renewed, for the people of the twin worlds to once more seize the stars for humanity. He would lead mankind into a new interstellar golden age and wipe away the remaining stains of old night. He could forge a new interstellar empire to claim the entire galaxy for humanity, but only if the Mechanicum agreed to be a part of it. The Emperor promised to grant the tech priests all the technologies hidden in the vaults of Terra if they ended their raids upon humanity's homeworld. He explained that the Mechanicum's right to worship the machine god as they pleased would always be respected in the new order, and that they would have an independence unrivaled by any other group. The Emperor would also give the Mechanicum 6 houses of his reborn Navigators to replace Mars's extinct Thrall Navigators. With this boon, their great Arx Mechanicus could once more travel through the warp without fear. the Mechanicum could reconnect all of its scattered forge worlds with their homeworld. All the children of the machine god would be united at last. In return, the Emperor asked only that the Mechanicum offer up the fruits of the Red Planet's labor to help make his dream a reality. He needed Mars's industrial capacity to build the starships, vehicles, and other equipment that his warriors required to restore mankind's rule over the galaxy. And he needed the tech priests to build a new psychic beacon to guide his navigators through the warp so that humanity's fleets could travel vast distances. Finally, the Emperor asked that the hands of the machine god, the Skitarii legions, the knights, and the god engines of the Legio Titanicus join his crusade to forge a new golden age. After the Emperor's address, for most of the lords of Mars, there was no longer any doubt that the man who had come before them was the Omnissiah. He offered a path to complete the quest for knowledge, as prophesied. He would extend the human reach into every corner of the galaxy, allowing the Mechanicum to recover all the lost information contained within the sacred standard template construct databases. His arrival at exactly this time, with the end of Old Night's warp storms, could be no coincidence. This was the divine will of the machine god. Of course, there were still some dissenters. They pointed out that the Emperor could not truly be the Omnissiah, for he displayed no signs of union with the divine machine. No bionics enhanced his organic form. Bloody strife eventually erupted over this dissent, but these disturbances were ruthlessly suppressed. The union of Terra and Mars was formally sealed when the Fabricator General was granted a seat on the War Council that the Emperor had chosen to help direct the growth of the new empire. The majority of the tech priests quickly came to accept the doctrine that the Emperor was their Omnissiah, and that his will was also the will of the machine god. Dissent was not wholly banished from the mechanical hearts of some magi, but they were wise enough to remain silent. The terms of the agreement between the Emperor and the Mechanicum was remembered as the Treaty of Mars, or the Treaty of Olympus Mons among the Cult Mechanicus' faithful, after the place where the Omnissiah had first set foot on the Red Planet. The covenant formalized the birth of a new empire, the Imperium of Man, that would endure for the next 10,000 years. To celebrate the start of a new era for humanity, the Emperor changed his personal sigil from the raptor and lightning bolt known as the Raptor Imperialis to a double-headed eagle, the Aquila. Its twin heads represented Terra and Mars, the dual foundations of the Imperium. One was the champion of mankind's destiny, and the other the architect of its future. The first order of business for the newborn Imperium, before its fleets could set out on their quest, was a simple one: to ensure accurate navigation of the Immaterium. Though the Emperor had re-established the Navis Nobilitae, the Navigator houses, the Navigators performed their function best when they could guide their charges by an artificial pole star set within the warp. If he desired, the Emperor was able to project a psychic signal of his own into the Immaterium that the Navigators or other attuned psychers could perceive. A journey through the warp that might take months could be accomplished in only days with such a powerful aid. But the Emperor needed the strain removed from this effort to free up his abilities for other tasks. With all the capabilities of the Mechanicum now at hand, he ordered the construction of the device known as the Astronomican on Terra. Huge numbers of tech priests were brought from Mars to oversee the great project. The majority of the Terran population was drafted to construct the towering machine. The Astronomican was the largest single edifice present on Terra, its sole purpose to serve as a focusing device for the Emperor's own psychic abilities. With its aid, he could generate a partly self-sustaining beacon through the warp, though few initially realized he was its source rather than the machine. It would provide the Imperium's navigators with their pole star when plotting their paths through the Immaterium, while the Emperor gave his full attention to other matters. Now the warp could be traveled with unprecedented speed and with a margin of safety never before achieved. This was a huge boon to the fleets of the Imperium and the domain they were to create, as well as to the astropaths who would bind the new empire together with their telepathic communications. Such was the Astronomican's effect that many began to call it the Divine Light, or the Emperor's Light, never realizing the literal truth of those words. At the same time, the Emperor used the great manufactoria of Mars now at his disposal to vastly increase the power of his Space Marine legions with improved war gear and rapid supply. the tech priests used Mars's great equatorial ring of iron to begin mass production of kilometers-long, warp-capable starships of every class and size. These would transport the legions across the galaxy, guided by the Astronomican's beacon, and support them once they arrived. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, the hands of the machine god would supplement the Legiones Astartes. The Mechanicum's towering titans and agile knights would deploy their city-crushing firepower to support the Space Marines whenever it was needed. The Emperor's Great Crusade to reunite the worlds of humanity could begin at last. After decades of preparation, the first step out into the void for the Imperial forces was a short one. The Sol system itself needed to be cleared of humanity's foes, for Terra and Mars were the only oases of human order in the galaxy. Alien invaders who had long hounded the system during Old Night were finally flushed from their bases among the moons of Jupiter and Saturn by the Space Marines and the Titan legions acting in concert. The wretched human slaves they had kept on those colonies were given new lives on Terra, while the facilities were handed over to the tech priests to build more shipyards. Farther out, in the frigid depths of the outer system, the once human things that called the Neptunian deeps home were exterminated by the Great Crusade for the sin of erasing their own humanity. At last, at the very edge of the system, the fleet encountered the artificial world of Sedna that had been created by an alien race to encroach on humanity's home. It met its end under the guns of the new forged Imperial battle fleet. For the first time in 5,000 years, humanity had struck back against the forces that had long oppressed it, marking the true end of the Age of Strife. This was only possible because the Emperor had harnessed the capabilities of Terra and Mars to pursue both his dreams of human unity and the machine god's quest for knowledge. But the Great Crusade had a vast task before it. The Emperor knew that his forces needed to reunite the human colonies of the galaxy quickly, no matter the price paid in lives or scruples. For the Emperor's hidden foes had not forgotten him, and their power was growing. The calming in the warp had also aided their cause, for it marked the birth of a terrible new consciousness in the Imperium, and its thirst for souls was unquenchable.